Hey everybody, this is Josh. Today we're going to go through and go ahead and put together this lower assembly for the 300 blackout build we got going on. And as you can see, I got a strip lower here, and we got the parts kit that came in from Delta Team Tactical. And this kit came in, I think it was right around $35, so you know, not a top of the line kit by any means, but hey, we're on a budget, so we're trying to get the most bang for our buck that we can. Let's see what we got in here. Trigger, hammer, and pistol grip. Now generally the pistol grips that come in these budget friendly options is just going to be your regular old mil spec grip. Nothing fancy, nothing too crazy. They're alright, you know. If you like them, get something a little better. Most grips ain't gonna run you but maybe about 10, 15, 20 bucks depending on how crazy you want to go. We got the ambidextrous selector, which I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, it came in the kit, so we're gonna put it in there. If we don't like it, we'll trade it out for a regular one. Go ahead and pour this out here and get it started, and kind of show you how these things go. And we got a little detent in it here that the selector goes into, and then you drop it, but you got a little set screw there that screws that onto it. And the reason I don't really care a whole lot for these is really because they kind of get in the way of your thumb. I'm just not a huge fan. I have them on some other rifles that I have, and I'm not a super huge fan of them. But just tighten it down on there like that. And that's how they go. And you know, this side's pretty much the same way. Of course, you'll have to take one of these off to set it in the lower, but I'm just going to kind of put it together to show you. Alright, now let's see. Grab another selector lever I can show you here that it's not ambidextrous, you know, just a regular old plain Jane, just to show you the difference in them. Now, I'm not advocating either way, but this is a regular old mil spec one that comes on any regular AR that you buy. Nothing fancy, nothing great. I mean, it's a selector, you don't really need it, but you can see kind of the difference on the sides of them. And usually what gets me is the lever on the other side. It kind of just feels clunky and gets in the way, but you know, that's what came with the kit. We're going to put it on. If we don't end up liking it, we can always, you know, replace it. We have others. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to go through how to do with what we got. Empty our parts kit out here. Be careful with all these, because if you're like me, you're real good at losing little parts, small things. You also have your little breakdown that it came with, you know, to show you what all you have and what all your, if you're missing anything and all that. Now, where to start? How about we start? Let's start with the trigger assembly. Now, the trigger assembly, the hardest thing for me was always making sure this stays where it's supposed to go, which is right down in there. And if you look, a lot of times, if you get a decent enough kit, the bottom of that spring is fatter than the top, so it kind of helps it squeeze in there a little bit. It has some resistance going in, and you can kind of hear it there, but it helps it stay in there, which keeps your sear on there to where when it lines up, everything should work the way it's supposed to work. Should get said a lot in this house, just so you know. But spring on here, and the way you're going to do that, you're going to kind of come up from underneath here. Up from underneath and pry it up over these little detents. Well, I try to make everything as hard as I can sometimes. There. Make that little lip go in front of the trigger, and that's the way that's going to sit. That way when it sets into the lower, it's going to set in like that, and that'll provide the spring tension. And they have several different of these kits where you can get bigger springs and, you know, all that kind of good stuff. But then this spring here will end up going right here. Oh. Springs are kind of tight, which is a good thing, you know. There we go. Now, that'll go in there like that. And then once it all sets in, the lower, your sear, of course, is going to be up here. And then this will sit roughly right in there to where that hook will grab, and those springs will rest on top of that trigger assembly like that. Now we'll go ahead and set this inside the lower. The way I kind of like to do it whenever I'm building the lowers. And like I said, I'm known to make things difficult from time to time. But I will take a pin and go ahead and get it started in that lower assembly. In that trigger assembly, you see how the pins or the holes will line up right there. And you go ahead and get the pin started. Pull it out just enough right in there to where you can set your sear down in there. And your sear is going to set in. And you will have to push down on that sear to get the holes to line up on it. Make sure you drop your pin out like I did and completely negate everything you just did. But you'll push your pin in there, and once it's set in where it needs to be, everything will hold in place. Now we'll be upgrading these pins with some anti-walk pins later on down the road. I'm going through and showing you the basic gist of how to do, you know, everything quick, down, and dirty. You know, nobody wants. Alright, now that you got that lower in, or I'm sorry, that lower section of the trigger assembly in, we're going to put the hammer in. Now the way that hammer is going to go is that spring is going to sit on the back right there like that. And then these two little legs is going to go down in here and rest on those little detents where the pin's at. And it's going to be a little tight getting it in there, but just bear with it. Take your time. But you're going to kind of press those legs down in place, and then you're just going to push in the hammer until the holes line up. Now one thing you can do is get you a punch, and it's kind of harder to do at the house without a block or anything. I've never had one. I've used them from other people, and armorers in the past have helped, you know, by loaning me some, and you know, I've never purchased one, but you basically just take a pin or a punch and press it in there like that, and then you're just going to take your pin and kind of chase the punch out. Keep pressure on this to help hold it in where it goes when you put your pin in. Now, once you peg it down in to where it's roughly where it needs to be, you just take your pin or your punch and your hammer, and finally just press it the rest of the way in place. Like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot of beating and banging and pounding on it and all that. It should go where it wants to go. But now that that's in there, you can do kind of a functions check. Pull your hammer back. Now when you ride this hammer, don't let it just slam forward up against your lower here, because it can break. It will. I'm not saying it will every single time, but it can. Everything seems to be functioning good. Now let's move on to the next step. And you can kind of do this in any order you want to. It doesn't necessarily matter the order that you're doing it or anything. But next, we'll move right on along to the bolt catch. And it's gonna set in here, set right in here into our lower, and get our hammer out of the way here. But it'll set in pretty much like that. I mean, of course, we're going to have a spring in here and everything, but get that pin in there. We're going to set that in, give us an Allen wrench here to see if it'll help get us in line where we need to be. Get a smaller Allen wrench here. You don't need much. I don't have a punch small enough for that. I'll try one of these. See if it'll help us line everything up a little bit here. Might be able to go a little bigger there. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, now got that in there. Now we'll just tap that pin the rest of the way in, and now that we got that pushed in, might be able to go just a hair more. Yeah, let's go a little more. Okay, now it's not jutting out on either side, so I'm happy with that. Seems to be moving pretty smooth. Okay, now move on. Now at this point, if you have the ambidextrous safety, you can go ahead and put it in there because it will hold itself in when you put this side on. So, I mean, we'll go ahead and do that just to knock one more thing off the list. Hit the freaking, there we go. Now, safety's in there. Safety's in there. Now while we're here on the safety part, we can go ahead and put our grip on. Now at this point, if you wanted to do another grip, they all go on roughly about the same way. There's no crazy differences between how the grips go on or anything like that. They're all just a an Allen screw up through the center. You just got to find the right size Allen screw, or Allen wrench, I'm sorry. Now that you got the right size Allen wrench, steal a wrench off your buddy Allen and put the spring or the stopper down in there that's going to ride into your selector lever. You can put your washer onto your screw, onto the end of your Allen wrench here, put it up through. Now that spring, this spring is going to end up going right in here, and that's what's going to press down on that to hold everything in place. Now if you're like me, that's easier said than done. You can do it 100 different ways, and I'm never dexterous enough to find a really good way, but you just do whatever works. I kind of go with the little hope and pray method. But once you got it all down in there, you just screw her down and get real good and tight. I'm sure there's some kind of specs for perfect tightness and all that. I kind of just go with the Ugga Duggas till it feels right. It sits in there. Now you can do your little functions check with your safety lever and everything, on safe. It does safe things. On fire, it do fire things. We'll go ahead and check our trigger reset. Reset. We got a good trigger reset. We got a good safe. So far, so good. Move right along here. Next on the agenda, we'll go ahead and do the mag release. Now the mag release, of course, this goes in here. That catches the little square hole on the mag and everything. But we're going to put us a slide that down in there. Hold your finger on it, that way when it runs off, it don't run off far. Roll your spring down in. Now your mag release button, there's two sides on it, and the little textured side is where you're going to want your thumb. So you kind of just press it down in, give it a little twist or two to make sure that it seats onto that screw like so. Then you're going to push it through this side and go back over here and spin here to tighten it up. Now some of them are different. Some people like them a little tighter, some people like them a little looser. I like mine to work. That's the biggest thing. Once you get it where you like it, to where however much you press is going to release the mag. Now you don't want it so loose that whenever you release the mag, it's going to come out here and loosen up and do that. So go a little tighter for that, obviously. I'm going to do mine just a hair tighter, but once you get it where you like it, of course that's where you're going to want to stop. Now we're in there. Okay, that's one more thing down. Now let's move on down, and we'll go ahead and put our trigger guard on. Now, if you're doing a lot of winter time hunting or anything like that, you may want to invest in the mag. I know Magpul makes a pretty good one. There's a one that kind of curves down and out of the way, made for if you're wearing gloves. You know, this one's, like I said, this one's a budget build. So we're not gonna go with any kind of fancy high dollar items. We're going budget friendly. Now we got our roll pin. Got a roll pin that we're going to punch in here. Now let's get it started. That way we don't have to fight it. Little too much. Now, got our pin started, and you're basically gonna push this into where this little detent here, as you can see, it kind of pushes in and out. That's to help you swing it out. It's going to want to go on the right side of the lower, because on the left side there's no cutout for it. So you want to be able to actually use that the way it functions and everything. You just kind of, again, like all the others, push it up in there and pop your pin in. You go till your pin is nice and flush. Push your little detent up until it clicks into place. And that's that. You can go ahead and do you another functions check. See if you like it. Check your trigger reset. Is good. Safe. Does safe things. Now right here I'll go ahead and show you the thing I don't like about the ambidextrous safety. When you have a grip on this firearm and you go to flip it to fire, that is going to be right there in that finger, digging into that finger. I'm not a huge fan. If you want to change it, change it. All you got to do is loosen that, pull it down some, knock it out, put your other one in. But for now, we're just going budget of what we have. What we have is what we have, and that's what's going to get used. Now, next thing, we're going. Okay, now let's move right along to the takedown pins. Now the takedown pins, you have two different sizes. One of them is actually called a pivot pin, and that one's going to go in the front. The back one is your actual takedown pin, and it will go in the back. Now, whenever it goes in the back is whenever you put your buttstock, pistol brace, whatever you're deciding to use, is going to go right here in the back. And we'll go ahead and start with that one, just to kind of get everybody a good, view of how it's going to go. Now, when it goes in, you're going to want the detents on the back, and it's going to go in to the right. That way it'll catch that little pin that goes in the back here. So it has a little bit of a bevel to it that's going to go right down in there, and it will catch on that takedown pin. And that takedown pin, it'll keep it from flying all the way out the side. And of course the spring's going to go in the back too, and your tube is going to go in here. And then with all that, that's where your buffer stop comes in, and it's going to go in right in here. Now let's go ahead and do all that all at one time. Make it nice and aggravating. Plate. Worried there for a minute. Thought I lost it. The plate will go in against here to hold that spring in place. And it will set. You see how there's this little groove dug in, and it's going to set in that groove to keep everything in place. Now, kind of a pain sometimes to put on, but once you get it started, a couple of threads in, then you're going to go ahead and put your spring in here. You're going to put your spring in there, and your buffer tube stop, you set it in for now just to sit there, because what you're going to worry with for now is that spring and that plate. You can take your thumb and push down on that tube and hold that in place at the same time. That's how it's going to go. Eventually it's how it's going to sit in there. All right. But for now, we're going to take that spring out. We're going to tighten down our tube. Until it gets right to that. Sorry, I'm trying to hold that thing in there. Whenever it gets right in where you want the pin to stop it. Okay. Now you're going to come back here, push it off to the side just enough to get that spring down in there. Now what you got to do, you got to hold that spring down as you push that plate over. And if you're anything like me, you will shoot this spring into the cosmos more times than not. Oh, about did. But me and springs don't get along well. But you're going to push that spring down until it gets in place and does what it's supposed to. Like I said, me and springs don't get along. Alright, you're going to push it in place and hold that down. Move your buffer tube nut down to get it in place. Make sure everything's holding the way it's supposed to hold. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do. Looks like everything's good. Make sure your tube is straight like you want it. Alright, then you're going to take your wrench and you're going to take it and tighten it down to the specifications that it calls for, which the torque settings on each ones of these are different. So tighten it down to your specified torque settings. Now that we're nice and tight and torqued and all that, go ahead and try your takedown pin. thing is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, you can go ahead and put in your buffer spring and tube to make sure that it's going to hold in like it should, and it is. And put our pistol brace back on. Now, there we go. Got that in place. Okay, now for the pivot pin, you've got your pivot pin, the little plunger, and the spring. Now again, like I said, me and springs don't get along very well, but you're going to have a little hole on the front. You're going to take and put that spring in, and then your little pin is going to go in there also. Now for this, what you're going to want to do is you're going to take that pin and push that in, line up the divots on there, and push down until it clicks in place. And that's your takedown. That's your takedown pin. It's going to do takedown pin things. They're going to be really tight in the beginning, y'all. That's just the way they are. But if you ever have to take that out, you've got this little hole here. And you're going to take an Allen screw and push down in there to relieve pressure off of that pin and pull it out. But as for now, that's it. That's the lower assembled and ready to go. It's just that simple, guys. Get out there and get to work. Get you some, do some practice. Put you an AR together, go out, have fun with it, but be safe about it. Always be safe. Now, if you like what you see, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. But always, most importantly, be kind and tell somebody you love them. Thanks for coming out.